They explored these ideas centuries ago, and somehow they still shape the world you live in today. Power doesn't always look like power. Sometimes it looks like a speech, sometimes it sounds like truth, and sometimes it feels completely normal. But what if the rules shaping politics today aren't new at all? What if they were already exposed by minds most people never fully understood? Because long before modern governments, before media empires, before digital influence, there were thinkers asking one dangerous question: who really controls reality? And the answers they found still echo today. It begins with Socrates, or more precisely Socrates as recorded by Plato. He warned that those who refuse to engage in politics risk being governed by those less capable. Simple idea. If thoughtful, informed people step back, someone else steps in, and not always the best. Look around today. How many people say, "Politics doesn't matter to me"? Now ask yourself, who benefits from that silence? Because power doesn't disappear. It shifts to whoever is willing to take it. And that leads us fully into Plato. He imagined a world where people lived inside a cave, watching shadows on a wall, believing that's reality. They don't question it. They don't leave, because it feels real enough. But here's the uncomfortable question. What if you're not outside the cave? What if you're still inside it? Today, those shadows might look different. News headlines, social media feeds, carefully edited narratives. This doesn't mean everything is false, but it suggests something deeper. That what we see is often filtered, framed, and selected. Not pure reality, but a version of it. Then comes Aristotle, grounding the discussion. He said that humans are naturally political. In other words, you don't get to opt out. Even if you ignore politics, it doesn't ignore you. It shapes your laws, your economy, your opportunities. Politics isn't just governments. It's the invisible structure organizing society. So the real question isn't whether you're involved. It's how aware you are of it. Now the tone shifts. Because Niccolo Machiavelli didn't describe politics as it should be. He described it as it often works. He argued that it can be safer for a leader to be feared than loved if both aren't possible. Uncomfortable idea. He's not praising fear. He's pointing out its reliability. Trust can fade. Approval can change. But fear influences behavior quickly. Think about leadership today. Do people follow because they believe or because they feel pressure? Social, economic, or political? Machiavelli reveals something important. Power often depends on perception, not just intention. That leads directly into Thomas Hobbes. He imagined a world without government. No rules, no authority, no structure, and he described it as chaotic and dangerous, a place where life becomes unstable and uncertain. What he's really saying is this: without some form of authority, order can collapse. So governments don't just lead, they prevent breakdown. But now we reach a tension, because how much authority is necessary and how much becomes too much? That's where John Locke enters. He argued that laws are what make freedom possible. At first, that sounds backwards. Shouldn't freedom mean fewer limits? But Locke flips the idea. Without laws, power concentrates in the hands of the strongest, and everyone else loses protection. So, real freedom requires structure, not total control, not total chaos, but balance. At this point, it sounds like a contradiction. One thinker says, authority prevents chaos. Another says, structure creates freedom. And then comes Jean-Jacques Rousseau, challenging both. He said humans are born free, yet live within systems that restrict them. He's pointing at something subtle. The same systems that create order can also limit individual freedom. Think about modern life. How much of your daily routine is chosen, and how much is shaped by systems you didn't design? Work structures, social expectations, economic pressure. Are these limits necessary, or are they constraints? Maybe they're both. Now we move into something more direct. Karl Marx argued that dominant ideas in any society often reflect those who hold power. In simple terms, influence shapes belief, not always through force, but through systems like education, media, and culture. This doesn't mean individuals can't think independently, but it does suggest that ideas don't emerge in isolation. They are connected to the structures around them. So now the question becomes, if ideas shape reality, who shapes the ideas? That question leads straight to George Orwell. He warned that political language can make harmful actions sound acceptable. Strong claim, but look closely at how language works. Terms get softened, framed, reworded. Civilian deaths become collateral damage. Surveillance becomes security measures. This isn't always intentional deception, but it shows how language can influence perception. Language doesn't just describe reality, it shapes how we understand it. And if you shape understanding, you shape reaction. Here's something to sit with. You don't need to control people if you can influence what they believe is true. And that brings us to the final voice, Friedrich Nietzsche. He warned that in fighting what we see as wrong, we risk becoming similar to it. It's easy to challenge power, to criticize systems, to call out injustice. But the deeper challenge is this: can you do it without repeating the same patterns? History shows how difficult that is. Movements rise to oppose control and sometimes create new forms of it. Different faces, similar outcomes. So, what does all of this mean? Not that one thinker is completely right. Not that one idea explains everything. But together, they reveal something important. Power is complex, truth is layered, and perception plays a bigger role than we often realize. These aren't absolute truths, they are perspectives, ways of understanding how societies function across time. They've always been available, just rarely connected, and maybe that's the real insight. Systems don't always need to hide the truth. Sometimes complexity alone is enough to obscure it. So the next time you hear a speech, read a headline, or form an opinion, pause. Ask yourself, is this reality? Or is it a version of reality, shaped by perspective? Because those who asked these questions centuries ago weren't trying to control the world. They were trying to understand it. And now, that responsibility continues with you, because understanding power is the first step to thinking independently within it. If you never question power, you don't just live under it, you help it continue.